Welcome to Silicon Valley Asian Business Talk.
My name is Roger Chen, and I work at the University of San Francisco. My field basically is the innovation and a strategy, and I represent basically two centers. So one is, as you can see here, from the, we call it CAPS, University of San Francisco Center for Asia Pacific Studies, and also another center is the Center for Business Studies and Innovation in Asia Pacific. It's also part of an interview program I'm doing for the center. The name of the interview program is called the Silicon Valley Asia Business Talk, where we kind of interview successful Asian business leaders as well as entrepreneurs. So yeah, Stacey, yeah, please.
So
briefly introduce yourself.
So to begin with, I don't know how I fit in that description you just said, Silicon Valley entrepreneur.
You are part of Silicon Valley, right?
A little bit further up. But anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks everyone for joining. So my name is Stacey Ma. I'm currently the Executive Vice President of Pharmaceutical Development and Manufacturing at Gilead Sciences, which is a biopharmaceutical company. My entire career has been in the biopharmaceutical company for close to almost 30 years. I spent over 2 decades in another very famous biopharmaceutical biotech company in the Bay Area, Genentech, and then Roche. And then after 20-some years there, I also joined a startup in the Bay Area, Sound Biotechnology, which is a cell gene therapy company, and built up a whole tech ops or manufacturing organization there from ground up. After 3.5 years as Sound Biotechnology, I joined Gilead in mid-2022, so at the tail end of the COVID pandemic era, and I have been there almost 3 years. So it's really a pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about kind of the intersection of technology and biotechnology.
The impact of AI on the pharmaceutical industry.
We can talk about the AI, which is kind of a big elephant, the topics many people are interested. Maybe you can tell us actually from your perspective how AI is changing or influencing the way let's say pharmaceutical companies, including Gilead, to do the drug discoveries. Because there are a lot of talks, report about that. Maybe you can share some insights relating to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was asking, earlier, who's from pharmaceutical, who's from technology.
Yeah.
So I'm obviously from the pharmaceutical space. So I look at AI as a tool, right? How do I use it to aid? My end goal is to deliver a drug to patient.
Right.
So let's just start with that. So then in that context, so AI, first of all, AI definitely has already been playing a role in the pharmaceutical industry from beginning to the end, from drug discovery to delivering the supply to patient. And it will continue to evolve and play a role. So it is here to stay. Having said that, I think there's definitely, the whole industry in the biopharmaceutical industry, the view of AI to a large extent. We had the initial hype. I think we're coming down, cooling a little bit to come to a more of a reality check in terms of what do we use this technology for? It comes down to that. And it does have a lot of different application in different, area of pharmaceutical industry. So let's say in the research discovery stage, there's a lot of application of using AI, looking at protein structure, like how the protein interact with the cells and et cetera. So in the discovery stage, and in the clinical development stage, which is a huge portion of how you develop a drug, you test the product in patient, in human. So there's a lot of application looking at real world evidence. How do you leverage that learning, as well as in just clinical trial? How do you design the trial? How do you execute the trial? Select the site of clinical studies. Those are our technology that you use. And then more closer to home, in my space, which is really focusing on how do you make the product, which requires technology, requires development, and it requires execution and operation every day to make it. And the application really, in a sense, you can split it into two buckets, so to speak. One is how do you use AI in the development phase, which stage, which is how do you actually improve the speed, use more modeling versus doing the work in the lab, et cetera. Those are the application of AI. And if you can streamline doing the development, a lot of our work effort end up in a regulatory submission because we're in a very highly regulated environment. Everything needs to go through, submit to FDA here, but the rest of the world has equivalent health authorities. So how do you streamline that process from beginning to the end? So if you can automate the report writing into the submission document, et cetera, those are all area of, I would say, efficiency that you can also look at. So that's one area, is how do you develop a product and getting it approved by health authorities. In the other area is operation every day in a manufacturing plant. So how do you consider the operation? And there's a lot of, in our space, a lot of quality oversight because it goes to patients. So there's a lot of compliance aspect that you have to factor in. And then a big piece is supply chain. Is how do you actually consider these three components of operation every day, have the data that are connected so that you can actually access the data from everywhere around the globe. I run a global operations, right? So those are the technology that you actually are basically we're leveraging in terms of AI. So there are different type of technology and application. So that's kind of maybe a high level and different area that you can think of AI application.
Yeah, I think that's great because actually if you look at the media, there are a lot of discussion about the very promising drug discoveries that you rely on AI. So what's your view on that? Because they're talking about, AI, using AI kind of algorithm models, you can discover, almost like discover the drugs to cure all sorts kind of a disease. Do you agree or disagree in on those kind of things?
Yeah, I think it's possible. It's going to take time. And
so when you say take time, roughly how long is the time horizon, actually?
I would say decades.
A decade, well.
Decades, I said plural.
Oh, plural.
It depends on the product. This is my personal view.
Yeah, of course.
It depends on the product, the complexity of the product. It's one thing if you're developing a small molecule because the structure is very simple. It's another thing you try to develop a cell as your product. That's a very complex, and it's a living system as a product. So the technology, the basic data that's needed to actually make those decisions is orders of magnitude different. So that's why this will continue to evolve, and a lot of this is depends on what is it actually for. Okay. It's not a one size fits all. Maybe that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, because actually, if you look at a lot of medias, they basically portray a very, very exciting kind of promising picture, but then, from you, it's a reality check. You say, plural, decades. So that gives us like a rough sense how long you will have to wait.
In a way, you can also look at least, we talked a lot about AI, et cetera, and recently I was in one conversation. It was actually a very good point that was raised. How do we compare AI with internet? In terms its scale, in terms everybody's using it, it's everywhere. The impact, and that's actually a really good way of looking at it. How long has it taken internet for it's like so widely used? It's not short years; it's decades.
Yeah, that's true. And also, as you said, depends upon the field, right?
Correct.
So maybe kind of say a few things because you say in the operation side of it, a lot of efficiency benefits. Mm-hmm. How about that? Do you think that we may see benefits, faster or?
It would be faster in some ways. Again, it comes down to data, and there's just so much data in our field. It has to be structured data. It needs to be connected, and it needs to be regulated. And all of these has to come together. You're going to find application in a certain area. Before it to have an impact end to end, to truly have a business, sort of make a difference impact, everything has to work, has to be adjusted, and that would take time.
That's a very good point because you mentioned about major pillars like a connected, structured data, regulatory kind of issues. Based upon your view, which one probably is the biggest barriers to make this kind of happen end to end, in a sense?
I don't know if it's one is going to be particular the barrier. I think all of them will continue to evolve. I'll say a few words on the regulation part, right? It will continue to evolve, and there's a lot more regulation. And when I say regulation, I don't mean kind of the AI, the data side, the privacy, the ethics, etc. That's given. I'm also talking about how do you actually then have drug developed in a way that is going to be able to get approval given the current drug sort of regulation by health authorities. And typically this also needs to be done, we'll come back to that. When you develop a drug, you also develop globally. You don't develop just for US.
That's true, yeah.
So you need to make sure that the global regulation of these new approaches are also sort of moving forward in the same pace. And that in itself is going to be taking time because not all the countries will have the same adoption of these new sort of rules. So those are all going to evolve over time.
Right. So we can see the complexity of that, because it's kind of multidimensional in a sense, right?
Thank you for watching.